We will now call to order the February 28th, 2023 special meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors to order. Will the secretary please read the roll?
President Ellising.
Present.
Vice President Mitchell.
Present.
Director Mason.
Present.
Director Nichols.
Present.
Director Herman.
Present.
Thank you. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Saltzman, would you introduce this evening's agenda?
Yes, thank you. The agenda tonight is for the board to, the resolution on the budget, and before that we have an executive session.
Thank you
And
very much.
strategic plan as well.
Oh, great. That's correct. Thank you very much, Dr. Saltzman. If all directors are in agreement, the agenda can be approved by general consent. Thank you very much. Tonight, the board will hold an executive session for the board to discuss litigation with legal counsel. At this time, the special meeting is recessed for approximately 5 minutes to be reconvened in executive session in the Silver Lake Room for approximately 15 minutes. No action may be taken during the executive session. Thank you. 5 minutes recess.
Walk over there.
Anytime? This special meeting is hereby reconvened in open session. The next item of business is item 5.01, which is approval of full and final settlement in the due process matter of Junkin versus Everett Public Schools. The recommendation on the table is to accept and approve the plaintiff's full and final settlement and release of claims in the due process matter of Junkin versus Everett Public Schools. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there? Thank you. It's been approved by, it's been recommended by Director Mason and seconded by Director Mitchell. Is there any discussion on this matter? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The motion passes. The superintendent is directed to sign the plaintiff's case.
Thank you, Madam President.
We will now move to the next item of business, which is item 6.01. Approval of Resolution 1291, adoption of the 2023 Reduced Educational Program. Dr. Saltzman, please begin.
Thank you. We'll take the podium, Madam President.
Yes, yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Madam President, and the Board of Directors. Thank you for being here this evening. This evening, I'd like to start by presenting our budget reduction plan for your review. This has been a rigorous process with a lot of participation. I appreciate the engagement and input you provided to February 9th board study session. And I hope you sense the amount of work that my team has invested to present with clear numbers and potential variables related to the budget deficit. You asked great questions, and we heavily considered every dot you placed on those posters. We have communicated to all audiences that the projected budget deficit is based on assumptions that will be constantly adjusted until the actual budget is adopted this summer. When I presented on February 9th, I presented an estimated deficit of $29.5 million. As of February 22nd, the number is estimated now to be $27.9 million. Today, you'll have the opportunity to look at my budget reduction plan, which totals $27.9 million. This plan took into consideration the abundance of input from staff and community. This plan was refined by a few things that we clearly heard from you, which include keeping the social workers, not reducing athletic programs, not charging credit card fees, and not reducing world language assessments. But before we begin, I want to reiterate that right-sizing next year's budget so that the expenditures will not exceed revenue will have a significant impact on our system. This is challenging work for everyone. I feel confident, though, that I've sought the right amount of input from groups, my cabinet, and other people as we wrestle with the pros and cons of various scenarios. I'm presenting you with a solid plan that will have the least impact on the classroom by setting up the district for long-term financial stability. I want to thank everybody in advance for their consideration on this reduction plan. I know it has not been easy for everybody. At this time, respectfully, I'd like to turn over to Ms. Andy Tress. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saltzman, Board of Directors. On the February 9th board.
Andy, you're not sharing that.
Oh, it's not sharing. Oh, thank you. You're not sharing again. Sometimes we just need a little assistance. Thank you, Dr. Saltzman, Board of Directors. On February 9th, the board approved a resolution that directed Dr. Saltzman to develop a reduction plan for the 23-24 fiscal year budget. Today, we will go over updates to the 23-24 budget, the fiscal outlook, and the request tonight is to have the board approve a resolution adopting the 23-24 reduced educational program. As you're aware, there are multiple factors in the budget development process. As an update from the February 9th meeting, the forecasted enrollment is expected to decline approximately 125 students. This is from our October 1 head count. Many factors remain in updating our final budget that will come to you in May and June timeframe. This includes funding outcomes from the legislative session, salary increases, and IPD or our cost of living adjustment, special services funding, and levy distribution. Based on the information we currently have, next year's forecasted revenues are approximately $382.3 million. This is a slight reduction to our adopted budget of $384.4 million. The decline is primarily due to a reduction in our federal revenues related to one-time funding for the COVID pandemic. This is offset by increases to our local and our state funding. This forecast will be updated as the remaining factors mentioned before in the previous slide are finalized. For next year's forecast, the expenditures are expected to exceed revenues by $27.9 million. As discussed on February 9th board study session, the reason there's a predicted deficit is due to increase in costs of materials and services, increased staffing costs, and the fact that the state doesn't cover all basic education costs, and unpredictable revenues. In short, revenues are not keeping up with expenditures. The reduction plan has been attached in our board documents and is approximately $27.9 million. The request tonight is that the board adopt the resolution for the 23-24 reduction educational program. Any questions? Discussion?
Any questions, Director, at this time, based on the information you've just heard?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Back in January, the revenue projection was about $374 million, and is now jumped up to 382, which is positive. But I was just curious if you could address. I mean, that's almost
Primarily, that increase was due to the increased funding factors related to our social emotional funding, and so that was what the update was for. And then our special ed enrollment as well. So we had an increase in our special ed enrollment, and that we're projecting that out in the next fiscal year.
Okay. And then I did have one
Go
other
right ahead.
question. Just looking through the line items on the reduction plan, I think one thing that I don't have clarity around, and we did have an opportunity as a board to go through this already and ask questions, but the one that I guess I didn't really understand was the limit salary increases at over $1 million, and if you could be more granular on that and how something like that plays out.
I don't know, so in regards to that, I think that there's different variables around that, and that kind of depends on where IPD lands in regards to that, but we would have to, there's discussions that would have to come into play for that piece of it. There are also additional options, hopefully, around what we can do for that piece of the program.
Can I ask
For
Dr.
example,
Scott? Because I think Dr. Scott, you said because of the reduction in staff, is that what I understood? Then that's,
It's not
what is-
related to,
what is, because I think you explained it when we had a meeting, if that's all right? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
Do we have a roving microphone so that way
we do.
people can have a microphone and be able to speak
It's
from
not
it?
related to the reduction, the potential reduction in staff. Andy mentioned the variable of IPD being lower, and therefore the onus of the district paying the difference between what IPD might have been at a higher amount to what it might be lower to would be some of the costs to recoup in that scenario.
What would the other costs be in addition to that?
Those were the ones that we were identifying with the 1.1.
Just the
The IPD, I think, Andy, IPD fluctuation, 1% of IPD, say IPD at 6, if it moves to 5, that is a difference of,
Around $1 million to $2 million, depending on where that lands.
So in our projected budget right now, we're anticipating 6
Correct.
is what the number we put in there, but yet on the budget reduction, we don't know where it's gonna land, but we're counting on over $1 million potentially that might be lower, or, I don't understand.
Yeah, so there's that piece of it, plus we have an additional plan around that where we plan on possibly recouping additional fund balance for next year on that regard. So it depends on, I think there's multiple factors that come into play around that.
you want to talk about the mid-year scooping of.
Yeah,
fiscal
so what we've done is reached out to all of our departments and schools to look at what we're currently spending in our budget and what we don't expect to spend going forward. And so it was kind of the option of, okay, we know that we will be but basically saying, taking that out of those department's budget. And so that is sort of, we have one option of looking at that one. When we know IPD is going to be flexible going forward, as well as we know we're probably going to have some increased fund balance as we start to continue throughout the rest of this year, related to the fact that, you know, each budget department has said, okay, we're not going to use this fund, we're not going to use this fund, so we're taking that away from the allowable piece of that.
But wouldn't that be up in the central office, the operational supports, the non?
No, because that's typically what we looked at when we looked at our budgets. We're like, this is what our budgets are for this year, and this is what we won't be doing next year on that.
So those are related to salary?
Those are, we're talking the MSOC costs.
Yeah,
It
and
could
I'm
offset
asking about the
They
salary.
could offset any of that piece of that.
So the total that we recouped for this fiscal year, mid-year, basically said rendered inaccessible this year to spend, almost identically matches that number there, $1.1 million.
Okay.
Almost identical. So that is a contingency plan.
I think the question still remains though,
Yeah.
this specific line item is labeled limit salary increases. So we have contractual obligations around salary increases that we've already agreed to.
That are not yet bargained.
Oh, and then there's some that we need to be bargained and all that other fun stuff. So what does this actually mean? Where is 1.15? Has there been progress, with talking with unions or meet and confer groups about kind of stepping down some of these increases, or has there not been, and this has come up with some other way that we haven't to?
We're still having conversations. That's why we wanted these other options, because we can't guarantee that we will have a resolution there. So we're looking at those other two options as backup plans, depending on how those other conversations go.
What are the other two options?
Yeah, go back, and what are the two options
So
again?
one's looking at IPT, right? We have to budget at that 6%, because we anticipate that's the highest it will be. But as we get clarity, it's looking more and more around 4%. So there's that range there. And then the other one is specific to recapturing some of the department budgets that are anticipated to be spent. Those all match around that same amount.
Are we looking at specifically those things that are contractually or have been contractually approved in a person's contract?
I don't think that, the answer would be no, because if it's contractually obligated,
That's a mutual agreement.
yeah.
But only for those groups that are bargained. Those groups that are not bargained, are we specifically earmarking this limited salary increases to those groups?
No, not at this point in time. I think it's more so that flexibility in IPD, and then the ability to have a different plan of recouping our MSOP costs from this year. So there's multiple options in which that can go to.
Okay, what major impact will this have?
And
The limited salary increases for those members that are within the district? What major, and what areas will the impact be
Like in-
specifically?
What, I guess you're talking about what groups?
Yes.
I don't think there's identified groups at this point in time. Am I correct in saying that?
Incorrect.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're asking if there's any groups not getting an increase or a raise, that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at options across the board. That's why we're watching closely what IPD is, what it'll come out to, and then the backup options.
So does that line item then need to have both of those options to be clear? Or is the line item not
This
as
is a
important?
plan, and so ultimately we have discretion to shift our plan as we go forward.
Okay.
And so I think, and I mean, that's sort of the intent of the resolution. It does say any major changes in regards to that. But it is a plan, and as we develop the budget going forward, there'll be shifts in everything we need to do. Because ultimately enrollment will impact what our staffing is and those staffing allocations. And so that's the idea, is the reduction program and as a plan, and there, we know as we develop that budget going forward, there will be shifts.
So limited salary increases only reflects the changes we see related to IPD.
Correct, and then we do have a backup plan in regards to that at this point in time, which would be looking at what we've taken away from budgets for this fiscal year.
Can you tell us more backup plan?
So ultimately, departments have said, each department and each school has gone through and said, okay, we will not spend this much money. And what we're going to do in the finance team is take it away from their budget and take that out of their budget capacity, and so that they can only spend to that certain level in that regard. And so that will, basically, they won't have the ability to spend above and beyond what their budget capacity in that department is.
But it does not reflect a backup plan to salary increases.
So that is the backup plan.
That is the backup.
Okay, gotcha.
So for example, if IPD comes in lower than 6%, which is a possibility, that we have that room in that piece of it, but it doesn't mean that there won't be salary increases or anything like to that effect.
And if IPD comes in at 6, that's when we've got that MSOC pullback. If IPD comes back at 4, then we don't, then that's where the $1 million comes from. That pullback might also help.
Correct.
So this plan that we're talking about in that line item in particular doesn't impact anyone's salaries if their position is here next year.
Well, that will be, I mean, all of that has to be negotiated for like bargaining units and things like that, and then meeting for confer groups, all of that has to also be discussed. So what salaries increases will be next year, you either have to go through the bargaining process or go through the meet and confer process to that piece of it. So that all, we can't say what that truly will be at a point in time until those conversations are discussed.
And from an accounting standpoint, how come we say IPD is going to be 6% in our projections, and then if it's not, we then, have an opportunity to add back programs, people, kind of like the rest of the budget as it shifts around, as it materializes and becomes more solidified. How come we're we're putting in a contingency for $1 million+ that might be there, but we don't know that?
And I think that's because there's some flexibility in regards to what we can do with that, because there's a lot of unknowns of what's being bargained, there's unknowns of what the salary increases will be. Those aren't finalized until we go through the end of the year, and so there is a lot of differences that can happen throughout the year.
I think it's worth restating, at least my position, and I hope other directors agree with me, that if we're going to be limiting salary increases, that needs to be done across the board. We can't just subject our meet and confer groups to unilateral decisions without all the labor groups sharing that burden equally. Because it's just not fair. And I really appreciate the labor groups that have come forward thus far saying, hey, this is something we're open to talking about. I encourage those that haven't come forward to that table to do so as well, so that we can try to limit the impact this has to personnel overall.
Yeah, and can you clarify something too, because I think with McCleary, that IPD is what, if the state determines the IPD, so that's what you're anticipating right now, and that's where, the teachers and other staff that are actually paid for out of that budget, like we supplement a lot of it, but.
So with some clarity.
Yes.
IPD is a factor, like it's a rate, it's kind of like a CPI, it's a cost of living adjustment. And so what happened at the end of last year is that the state did a look back, and so the IPD was expected to be significantly lower. And by the time that look back happened, it was later in the budget process, and so ultimately you have to, and a lot of our contracted language around that was around what our increases would be, and so it was later in the budget process, so we're assuming a higher IPD at this point in time, or cost of living adjustment, because of some of those factors in play. And so we're hearing that it may not be as high as 6%, but going this early in time, we need to be conservative in regards to what our budget is, because we don't want to have to go backwards. We don't want to not have enough in the plan to say, oh goodness, we have to go back to the board, and so that's sort of the intent of providing a conservative place in regards to that, so we can balance our revenues and expenditures.
And the IPD, like you just said, it's told to us.
Yes.
It is not something that we decide we're only gonna give 4%.
Right.
IPD is 4%, therefore.
We have no control over that
Unless
factor,
it's in the
that's
contract language.
that's in the
Unless it's in
legislature.
the contract language.
Yes.
And
Unless-
then, you know, that certain contract language around salary increases include that value.
Okay,
And there are a lot of groups that don't have contracts or bargaining units. And the question I have, is there a major impact going to be on those particular groups that don't have bargaining units to take the blunt of that $1 million? That
So I'm
concern.
assuming right now in all my expenditures, a similar practice of what we have done in the past. And so that, again, that's where we're trying to come in. It's, you know, it's assuming that it's a similar practice of what we've done in the past.
Just for point of privilege, our biggest dilemma is we don't get that IPD until April or May, as you plan, and that's the difficulties.
Mhm.
I do appreciate the clarification from the previous meetings that, you know, we're looking at ostensibly around 140 FTE reduction overall, and the actual reduction of positions not lost to either being that the positions are currently vacant or people are retiring, resigning. That's still, you know, about 38 people that may be reduced, right, at this point. And so just once again, you know, if we're affecting real people with these decisions. And I know none of us are taking that lightly. So the more we can work with our labor groups to really reduce that impact, the better. And I appreciate all the hard work our staff and union reps and meeting for groups are going through there.
Thank you. At this time, I guess the request is that you, that the board approve or adopt the resolution for the 23-24 reduced educational program.
Thank you very much. The recommendation on the table is to approve Resolution 1291, adoption of the 23-24 reduced educational program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
second?
I'd open the floor up at this time for any discussion.
I'd like to make one more comment.
Yes.
I would just like to concur with Director Nichols that, you know, was it 85% of our budget is people? And I would just like to make sure that there is equity in the way that the budget impacts people, especially when it comes to salaries, because that's one of our most significant costs. And it's important that everyone in this district, they all contribute in their own way, and I want to make sure that they're rewarded, or there's equity in that.
I'd like to also say this is a high-performing school district, and Everett has worked very hard to become a high-performing school district, and it's because of its resources, and its greatest resources it has are its people. And there is no one in here that would want to slight any person whatsoever. One of the concerns I do have is we have groups that are not part of a bargaining unit. And my concern is that the impact, that they will face will be greater than those that are in a bargaining unit that speaks for them and works for them. We value everyone, and there should be no impact. A person losing thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars is not appropriate because of the shortfall when another group is not. And I agree with Director Nichols and Director Mason when they say that we need to look at the total impact across the board in their particular unit or department. To decimate a department is not appropriate whatsoever, because then we have to grow back to a high-performing district. And that can take years to get back to. And our kids suffer as a result of that. And we have said at the beginning, everything should focus in on the student, and our cut should be as far away from the student as possible. These buildings that we have and the resources that we have support our students, and we need to maintain each and everything that we have. And I would like to hear what the impact, true impact for each group that is not part of a bargaining unit. Because I fear that they may be the ones that take the blunt of that $1 million. And that should not be appropriate.
Are you asking us to provide information on what the salary after we do this, what the salary kind of
Yes.
increases will be?
Right.
I think we can do that once those are finalized. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't know, outside of what's bargained, what salary increases will be. And even really, we don't even know what salary increases will be until IPD is finalized.
So far, the cabinet and the superintendent have done a great job of keeping us updated and communicating, and we look forward to the continued.
And we can do that in a Friday report. And I believe, if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but most of those salary increases come to the board in regards to that. So any sort of CBA will come to you, as well as any sort of increases for our main workers as well.
But salary and includes a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah.
The tidbit, yeah.
They include a lot of things. And you can say, oh, certain benefits, I would hate for health benefits to ever in that state, but I'm just giving you an example. Would be decimated as a result. And departments too. Departments that we have here are very important and vital to ensuring that students' well-being, safety and health and everything are taking place, and that's important. So as a public meeting, I want to make sure that we go on record to the public that we are very concerned about each and every member that works here at Everett Public Schools. We are a high-performing district. We want to remain a high-performing district. We value that because of its greatest resource, which are its employees. And we want to be kept abreast of everything prior to action being taken. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Okay. We have now, are there any further discussions? All those in favor, with the caveat of all the discussion items we've stated, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries. Superintendent, you are going to get us signed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll now move to item 7.01, which is our strategic progress monitoring session. And I believe the presenter is Dr. Mason.
Thank you, President Lassane, directors, and Dr. Saltzman. I'm very pleased to introduce the next series of updates on our strategic plan. Per our usual routine, you will hear tonight about 3 of our strategic initiatives, each one lasting 30 minutes, each segment including interaction and discussion. I would like to highlight 2 relevant parts of our strategic plan tonight. The first is that our strategic plan, I think more than others, centers student learning at the very center. Here, as visualized and described by our priority student outcomes. On their own, our initiatives won't move specific priority student outcomes, but when we use them complementary together, collectively, over time, we believe they will. And the second thing that our strategic plan does for us as an organization is it helps us to be thinking about the long term. As we manage the here and now, high-performing organizations must do that with vigor. And we must also be thinking about the long term to position our organization to find new and innovative practices to lead to transformed and improved experiences for students and their outcomes. So we're actually very proud and thankful to the board for continuing our focus with our strategic plan to ensure that we are doing that. I want to acknowledge our initiative sponsors and their many initiative owners for that work. So here are our 3 initiatives that you're going to hear about tonight. 2 of them focus on our human capital investments. You'll hear how we are responding to recent state legislation around human capital. You'll also hear how these initiatives interact with our values and commitments around diversity and inclusion. And you'll hear how some of these grants are leading to new partnerships and grants, again, with a long-term lens for the future. And our 3rd initiative will highlight our investments with our community around technology and instructional technology. I'll allow Todd to do that story, but one key component that leads to our strategic initiatives is Everett. And for some time, but Everett has been well past traditional device allocation models, which looks at numbers of students, numbers of staff, numbers of building, computes the number of devices and allocates accordingly. Todd will share how we are using much more teaching and learning focused practices, looking at traditional instructional spaces and even non-traditional instructional spaces, examining the teaching and learning interactions that happen in each of those spaces, and then asking the question, what pieces of technology, which devices are needed to support that instruction and that learning that's happening there. And not just the device allocation and supporting it, but what are the professional learning pieces, like the first major kind of input, but then a job embedded, so that it's a complementary resource allocation, devices plus ongoing professional learning. So you're very familiar, this is a predictable protocol or a predictable routine. You'll hear the big ideas, the whys, you can hear specific milestones and timelines. We want to acknowledge and recognize celebrations and progress, and we get to hear about that. You're going to look at our performance measures or how we are progress monitoring, specifically our implementation, and the next steps and the next opportunities. And of course, we'll also be hearing how we are engaging others, our stakeholders, along the way. And just to norm and invite the board, we really appreciate your questions and your interactivity during the session, and we invite them. So with that framing, I'd like to invite Kevin Allen to provide our first update.
Good evening, Board of Directors. My name is Kevin Allen. I'm the initiative owner, and my executive sponsor is Dr. Chad Golden. Our strategic initiative is to design and implement an effective recruitment and retention plan with an emphasis on diversity and inclusion for each employee group. Our objective is to enhance and expand recruitment and retention of a highly qualified and diverse workforce, and our theme is human capital improvement, development, and retention. Our core team includes Dulce Ruiz, our Diversifying Pathways Program Coordinator, Kalani Tibian, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Facilitator, Anne LaRue, our Classified Professional Development Coordinator, and myself. This work rose to the level of strategic initiative based on the significant gap between the diversity of the students we serve and the makeup of the staff who serve them. This aligns directly with our priority student outcomes as we work to ensure literacy, increase science and math achievement, while reducing gaps in achievement among student groups. Research shows a strong, measurable, positive impact on academic performance for students of color when the staff mirrors the diversity of the student population. Secondly, a focused effort to not only recruit but retain our workforce has significant financial benefits to the district based on the extensive costs associated with onboarding and training new staff each year. To achieve this objective, it requires us to examine past practices and reimagine the ways we can recruit and retain a highly qualified and diverse workforce. We shifted away from going to statewide and university job fairs, which did not produce many candidates each year, to working toward locally cultivating our employees. We recognize that if we support those in our diverse local community to find employment in Everett Public Schools, there is a higher likelihood of them staying with us long term. The green dot represents that we are on track with all aspects of this work. During this work, we've worked very hard to engage others. An important part of our work has been to enhance our existing relationships while creating additional partnerships to broaden our recruitment and retention efforts. We define diversity as a representation of culturally, racially, ethnically, and linguistically different groups that mirror the makeup of our community. We've worked with colleges and university partners to support our staff. City University, University of Washington, Waffle, Everett Community College, Western Washington University, Seattle Pacific University, and Western Governors University provide different options for candidates to earn their teaching certificates. We've strengthened or forged new relationships with each of these programs as they provide different pathways to certification, depending on the candidate's specific situation and needs. Some programs offer a fully remote option. Others offer a combination of remote and in-person learning. Others offer evening classes or weekend classes once a month. We connect with each program monthly to monitor our employees' progress, ensure we have their projected date for replacement as a student teacher, and determine if we need to provide additional support to any of our employees. Many of our staff have utilized Western Governors University as an alternative pathway option. Previously, we had not strategically partnered with this program, but because of many of our staff working with them, we now invite them to our information session for prospective candidates. We're also currently working with UW-Waffle and City University and other local districts and agencies on writing a grant for Leaders in Education, Advancing Diversity, Equity, and Racial Justice, or a LEADER grant. We've engaged our community through community partners. This is a resource we had not previously targeted as a potential for employment candidates. Specifically, we're working with Goodwill and Housing Hope. We're working with each agency's employment services team to connect their clients with our openings. Housing Hope provides 8-week training courses for their clients in a variety of fields, including food service, grounds maintenance, retail, and so on. Each week, we send them a list of our current classified openings and provide application support for their clients. They then send us strong candidates to apply for jobs. We just hired another one of their clients last week. We're engaging with students through the Recruit Washington Teachers Bilingual Educator Initiative Grant. This grant helped us fund our Introduction to Education class and provides information on moving into education. Many of our college partners, specifically Everett CC, UW-Bethel, and Western Washington University, provide information and contacts for students to get answers to questions about how to become a teacher. We're also working with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team to coordinate our efforts to retain our diverse employees through affinity. We're also working with the Everett Education Association's Justice and Education team, or the JET team, a group focusing on the needs and experiences of teachers of color. We meet with them monthly to discuss challenges and successes our teachers of color are experiencing in Everett Public Schools, and discussing what we can do as a district to support this part of our community. Some milestones and timelines. The LEADER grant, we are collaborating with local universities, community partners, and other local districts on a planning grant to apply for a 6-year grant to support our efforts to diversify the racial, ethnic, and linguistic makeup of our workforce. Our community partnerships have begun collaboration with several that I mentioned earlier to fill our vacancies. We continue our partnership with Michael Gonzalez at Goodwill, Aaron Matthews and Jerron Craig at Housing Hope, and we've hired over 10 employees from these partnerships so far. Just last week, Jerron sent an email stating, "Thank you for sending these jobs. Another one of our trainees just got hired by Everett Public Schools, and he loves it. I appreciate all that you do. We are making a difference, one person at a time." We've also started doing exit surveys in a different way. We created an automated exit survey in conjunction with individuals filling out their resignation or retirement forms. We now have a systematic way to compile the data. In conjunction with the JET team, we have tailored a few questions toward our diverse employees to learn about their experiences in Everett Public School, and if those experiences have impacted the decision to leave. Some additional milestones include teacher-intern professional development. We're providing specific professional development for our classified staff who are going to be student teaching. This is done in conjunction with the Beginning Educator Support Team, or the BEST team. We currently have 87 novice teachers in our district, which the BEST team works with on developing the culture for learning, classroom management, planning, and other skills needed to be effective educators. We have taken their work and provided it into our classified employees who are transitioning into a teaching career. This focus is to invest in our classified staff who are currently student teaching, to support their growth now, and when they are hired, they will have more targeted foundational training than a typical first-year teacher. Affinity groups, these are about to launch in March, with a focus on creating connections with our like-identifying staff to learn from their experiences, both positive and challenging, and improve our systems to support and retain them. One of our big celebrations, examples of recent work, this was our first time last summer running a classified job fair, and it was quite successful. Our goal was to reduce the number of classified vacancies we often have heading into the school year. We made significant strides toward this objective. We held our event on August 17th. We had 111 attendees. We offered 29 jobs on the spot and hired 31 substitutes. Over half of those who attended were hired by Everett Public Schools, including several clients from Goodwill and some attendees from Housing Hope. There was great energy in the CRC that day, and the entire HR team was involved. The board was staffed with laptops and HR personnel to support candidates completing applications. We had school administrators and department leaders set up throughout the lower level of the CRC to provide interviews and letters of intent to candidates to fill open positions. There was a lot of excitement when individuals were offered jobs and a few tears as well. One candidate who was hired on that day was in tears, sharing that she had been looking for a job for several months and was so excited to walk out the door with a job offer. Our employment team and compensation team followed up with all candidates to ensure their questions were answered prior to their first day of going to work. Principals and managers were surveyed about their experience, and overwhelmingly shared that they were pleased with how it was structured and that they were able to fill their positions. The food and nutrition and custodial departments both filled all their open positions that were available on that date. It was very rewarding to see our hard work pay off and for us to connect with our community in such a positive way. Another example of our recent work was our alternative route virtual information session. One of our key assets that we have is that our paraeducators are our most diverse employee group and represent a natural place to support talented individuals we know pursue their dream of becoming teachers. Many have an interest in becoming teachers, but often don't know where to start. We focused efforts to provide classified staff with information on what the 4 main pathways to certification are and how to begin their journey to become a teacher. On August 30th, we offered our second annual information session for paraeducators who have an interest in becoming teachers. We had 65 attend this session, and over the last 2 years, we've had just shy of 200 of our paraeducators attend. This number represents nearly 35% of our paraeducators indicating an interest in becoming teachers. As I mentioned earlier, the Leader Grant. This is a celebration. We've been granted the 2-year planning phase of this grant to plan and create a 6-year implementation plan to increase the representation, retain our diverse workforce, and advance change. Our initiative team here in Everett spearheaded this grant and brought together the group. Our partners include UW-Bothell, City University, Eastside Native American Ed Program, Edmond School District, Everett Education Association, the Goodland Institute for Educational Renewal, Marysville School District, North Shore School District, North Shore Education Association, Teachers of Color Foundation of Redmond School District, and the Tulalip Tribes. Why this group of local districts? A key reason was this grant was geared toward educational service districts applying for the grant, but we've not been included in our ESD's initial grant application. We contacted 2 of our key university partners, City U and UW-Bothell, and initiated our own application. A key to the grant was to have regional impact, and that is why we have other districts as well as a diverse regional partners as part of our grant team. We've met monthly since being awarded the planning grant as we've worked to put together an implementation plan. The planning grant awarded our group is $175,000 to spend over 2 years to develop the plan. If we were awarded the implementation grant, it would generate for our regional cohort over $1 million to support our recruitment and retention work, diversifying our workforce, and supporting our alternative pathway employees with tuition and removing financial barriers. Another example of our recent work, on October 27th, we hosted a virtual session for our classified staff as well as students in our Introduction to Education classes on the various programs locally. We provided breakout sessions for the different universities, and we also provided information on various ways to balance this pursuit with competing financial and family interests. At this event, we had over 60 staff and students attend. Our goal was to inspire those who attended, help them recognize that they can achieve their goal, and ultimately, that we're here to help them thrive. We have continued to follow up with those who attended throughout the year, providing updated information and being available to answer questions or connect them with the program they are interested in. We held a second event on January 12th with just City University to answer questions for that program specifically and had 23 staff in attendance. We are working with City U on providing financial assistance for candidates who identify as Latino, Latina, and Latinx, as they are fully funding tuition for about 10 candidates a year starting this spring. Additional work we've done is on January 26th, as part of our commitment to growing our own teachers and honoring the efforts of our current employees, we provided training setting them up to be successful as possible when they embark on their student teaching. We provided alternative route pre-service PD with our beginning educator success team or our best team. We offer training on establishing positive classroom culture, analyzing what moves and structures are most effective, and had activities to discuss their thinking. We'll be providing training on culturally responsive teaching in the spring once they've had time to establish their classroom culture. Some additional celebrations, alternative routes. We're proud of the work we've done in this area. We currently have 58 paraeducators in an alternative route pathway to become a teacher. We will have 32 who will be certified at the end of this school year. We have approximately another 40 classified staff who will be embarking on an alternative pathway to certification starting this summer. Our exit surveys, we're working to gather data on what factors cause employees to stay with Everett Public Schools for long periods of time, what may cause them to leave after only a short period of time. Based on analysis and our trends, we're working to identify what factors are within our control and actionable to support retention. We've electronically tied our exit survey to every resignation form as a field to submit and resign. Historically, this has been an optional paper form that people could choose to fill out or not. Beyond placing these in a file, there is no systemic method to gather the information, put it in a format where the information can be analyzed based on a wide number of factors, such as longevity in the district, the role of the employee, etc. This allows us to collect information from nearly every employee. Challenges and opportunity. We're going to continue to work on our leader planning grant to formulate a proposed action plan in anticipation of receiving the lucrative 6-year implementation. We're going to continue to gather exit surveys to inform growth areas for retention within our district. We've initiated some retention strategies, but we need to continue to foster these until they become routine practices. We've begun to gather some data that will help develop actionable plans moving forward to create a systemic retention plan. We've not been efficient in gathering data and putting it into a readily accessible format. We're working on establishing a dashboard to provide this data quickly and analyze the impact of our work. Our progress monitoring includes our initiative team meeting frequently to ensure we're on track, to assess our work and ensure we can meet future deadlines. Our leader grant also meets monthly. We alternate between Zoom and in person. Our weekly tracking of exit surveys. Since our resignation survey form has gone live, we have over 60 responses to this date. The data has been very overwhelmingly positive, and we hope that continues. We've continued to check in with our alternative pathways candidates. We're consistently connecting with them. We visit each building twice a year to answer any questions, see if there's other candidates out there, and provide support as needed. We look at our hiring and retention data semi-annually to assess patterns and/or trends, and if we need to consider course corrections. We've been able to consistently fill most positions, but have identified special education paraeducators, specifically in high needs classrooms, as an area to focus on. We're exploring avenues to provide resources and access to the parapro exam for candidates, as well as additional focused training once hired. And our next steps are continue on with the leader grant. We meet again on March 10th and 13th this month. During these meetings, we'll collaborate on increasing the representation of ethnically, linguistically, and racially diverse teacher candidates in our region, and specifically identify other organizations that should be included in our project. And we will continue our pre-service training in March and May to bring together our alternative pathway student teachers to provide further professional development around culturally responsive teaching. So if you have any questions, comments, we're happy to field those.
Directors, are there questions that you have? Director Nichols.
Thank you, first of all, and just a few questions here for you. So I just want to confirm, so of those 200 paraeducators that started attending those alternative pathway sessions, we have 58 in the pipeline currently, with 32 scheduled to finish.
Yeah, and then 40 more that are anticipating starting this summer.
That's fantastic. I'm really excited to see that. It's something we've been talking about since I started on the board. And to that end, I guess we've also been talking about affinity groups for a while. Have we actually started any affinity groups?
That is launching starting in March.
Mid-March, okay,
Yes.
but we don't have any that are existing
Not
organically. And then,
We have none, wait a minute, there are
Yeah, there are
some
some existing.
groups
Yeah.
that are in the district.
Isn't there a black educators? But I thought there was already.
There's the JET team,
Yeah.
which is the EEA sponsored, but nothing specifically with our initiative that
Oh, for
we
the
have
initiative.
initiated.
Okay, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
that's the next step.
Okay, I
And
understand.
I've had a lot of great conversations with them about the power of human resources facilitating that versus them facilitating for themselves.
I gotcha.
And then my last question for you is, from the exit survey so far, do we have any actionable data?
At this point, no, and it's early, and to be totally honest, a lot of those were incentivized by a stipend for resigning.
Sure.
So I think as time goes on, I think that data will become more telling of what we can attack.
Has there been any effort to go back through the old paper files, find ones that we have and?
I have those.
Yeah.
I have started, they're,
Yeah, well, I
so
would imagine.
it's a process to make sense of it in a meaningful fashion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just have a couple statements, because
Go right ahead.
I had the pleasure of going to Emerson with Pete, and I was able to go to go to a classroom where we had a para who was doing her student teaching, so she will be hopefully, if we have the opening, employed this fall, I believe I was told. Also with the diversity at Emerson, a fifth grade teacher who is a native Spanish speaker, who was not in a dual language class, but speaking Spanish to some native Spanish speakers to help bring them along in their general ed. So Dr. Meiser was very pleased to point that out to me, which I do think that while that is one school, the fact that those 32 people really are out there, and the diversity, even in a non-dual language classroom, is apparent. You mentioned that overwhelmingly positive, to go off of the question. So were most of those due to that stipend? And again, for the community, that stipend was, if you gave us notice early, that was what we wanted so we could help with our budget. But were there any, because I know some people leave, they want to stay, but family is what takes them away. If there wasn't the stipend, are there any of those that were, they left because of another, that wanted to stay? Because, I mean, we hear that a lot.
There were, I would say 3 to 5, but I'm thinking 5 is probably a more accurate number, that expressed that because of childcare, they were leaving the profession for now and may continue subbing. Some of them expressed an interest in having leave extend longer, for like 5 years till the child was in school, specifically. But so yes, that was that.
And that was certificated staff?
Correct.
Which I think, I have several friends that, my child's friends that, yes, they left. And as soon as the kids got into middle school, they're back at their elementary schools and for wherever their school is. So it would, if there is some way we can keep in touch, do we keep in touch? Or, I mean, I just think it's an opportunity just to when they, maybe there is a subbing, but maybe there is a, keep in touch.
That's great, I like that. We don't have a formal system for that right now, but I will bring that back to our initiative group.
Especially if we don't want to lose somebody, because, when their lifestyle changes again.
Send them a card every 5 years.
No, like, I'm thinking yearly, like, or 6 months, like, I'm thinking frequent touch points. Like not too frequent, but reasonable.
Any other questions, Rector?
Not so much a question, but to start off, that there's so many exciting avenues that you're working on that just seem to really speak to what we need in our system. I love the exit surveys, just to cover that data. And also the focus on sustaining the people we already have, making sure that they are well supported and stay in those positions that they are wanting to get into, and so all that support around that. And I also appreciate what you left off with, the challenge ahead of special education, special ed paras. And I'll be really interested to see what we can do to tackle that. And I know it's a challenge around the state. Other districts are facing the same thing. No easy answers, but I would love to hear an update when we made some strides on that. I was just looking at the openings on a district website, and so just again, thanks for all of this, the job fairs alone, and just continuing to beat that drum and invite people in and keep the people that we're able to get. And I know recognizing, of course, we just talked about the inability with the budget right now, but the fact is throughout the year, we have such a big system we still need to do all these things to keep our system going, so just really appreciate it.
Can I add one more thing based on our, sorry, just really quickly, because I forgot. When we were just down, I was down there on Sunday with the students. One of our student reps actually said that she, the intro to education class, she has one friend who is moving forward in education, but she knows of one student that decided that wasn't a goal. But what a wonderful opportunity for free for that career exploration. And maybe that one student that it is moving forward, maybe that is an opportunity for us. I just apologize for that, but it was on my notes.
Director Mason? I do have a couple comments, and thank you so very much for your initiative information packet. It's really good that we're doing so many things within the system to ensure that we have a very diverse faculty, and that's very important. I also heard through just yesterday, I found out we had a special ed para who had left the system because of family changes and dynamics, but here we have a special ed faculty para who will eventually want to come back to the system, but because of the changes in her family situation, had to make that change now. So it's very good that we can keep the doors open, and keeping communication is very vital. Because, you know, when you value your employees, you can always say, are you ready to come back? Are you ready to come back? So the other question I do have is about our website. You talked about alternative virtual information sessions that you have. How much of this is on our website as alternative pathways or pathways and community partnerships that we have for this initiative?
There'll be more soon.
So that was, I know it may not be a question for you, but maybe Kathy Reeves would be able to enlighten us on what our website has for people that are looking on their website, because technology is very important for the next generation, and that's where they go to find employment or opportunities. And so that was my question, how much of this is on our website? Thank you very much for the exit surveys that was down here. I was gonna ask that question. And the other 10 candidates at City U were in the Latinx. That's very good, I appreciate that. That's very nice. And our affinity groups. When you talk about community partnership, and you just mentioned Housing, Hope, and Goodwill, we have a lot of other opportunities through the Naval Station Everett, which is going to be getting additional ships coming in the port. We can always use them as an opportunity. We met with one of the persons over there. That is a good opportunity to keep them as a partner. Also, Economic Alliance, you never know through their resources that they have. Having it in their website as well is talking about the entire community and what opportunities are available for people moving into the area. That's always a benefit. So please consider those as opportunities to expand our horizon. Thank you so much.
May I have a point of interest?
Yes.
Just want to say that recruitment is 24/7 all year round. And you just can't forget that. Even with the budget cycle that you have now, it doesn't last forever. So it's very important. And past 3 years, we've done an amazing job with recruitment, especially our diverse candidates, but also getting our paraprofessionals to be teachers. That is an ultimate goal. It's a great way to recruit while they're here. You don't have to go out and get it. So I want to compliment the board because I know when I arrived here, that was one of the things we worked on, getting paraprofessionals to get courses for that, and also that HR continues to recruit. The exit surveys are very helpful. Probably anecdotal, it's new now, we've inherited through the many years, and we're getting it systematic, which is one of the things that we've brought on for our initiative with this team and with the HR department, so kudos to the HR department. So you find a lot of people do leave over family reasons, but it's good to see, especially our beginning teachers, because they need support. And that's what you see too, what PD have we given them. The first 3 years is the most challenging time for an educator, is the most challenging time. So I think this is a really important initiative because I've seen as a superintendent how far we've come in our HR department. Great work by Ms. Kovacs, who was here before, and great work by Dr. Golden and your team, because these are initiatives, especially just in an area where you're competing with so many folks, that you gotta have this going on 24/7. But I'm just very impressed on what we're doing for our paraprofessionals, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Quick anecdote, I was at Madison Elementary a number of weeks ago. This really impacted me. There's a novice teacher, and she was so proud to tell me her experience as a paraeducator. She did her first 2 years at Everett Community, stayed on that campus and engaged in Western's teacher ed program, worked in our district the whole time, and she was so prepared as a result. She knew our system, she knew our kids, she knew our curriculum, and she was also proud to tell me she had no debt as a result of that. And that just is something I took to my own kids, right? So thank you to Dr. Saltzman for that vision for human capital and recruitment with proactive stance, and we have a lot to build upon. I'd like to invite Robbie up, and she is going to give you an update on many of our initiatives, or our initiative that is working to engage the staff that we have. How do we promote their engagement, their wellness, and learn from them as partners for our work together. So Robbie.
Thank you. Good evening, Director, Dr. Saltzman. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Happy to be here. I'm talking to you this evening about Initiative F2B. You can see on the screen there, I'm the initiative owner, and my sponsor is Dr. Golden, that I have the honor of working with every day. Our strategic initiative is around ensuring an inclusive work environment, supporting wellness. You're going to hear that word a lot this evening. A sense of belonging, engagement, and support. And of course, this is under the theme of human capital recruitment and development and retention. Just as Kevin mentioned, my dot is green, meaning we're on track to meet our objectives. Before I dive into this interesting work, I just kind of want to frame a couple things quickly. Wellness programming is new work for us, and it's important. It's important for a variety of reasons, but because of legislative mandates, and also you as a school board have adopted school board policy around some of this. It's critically important to our organization's success. Staff well-being really supports and spans all of our employees, all of our schools, all of our central office, and in turn, we then can support our students. So just want to kind of frame why wellness is so critical to us. So for milestones and timelines, I'm thrilled to report that we were the recipient of the Kaiser Permanente Thriving Schools Grant. This is a community of practice programming grant designed to help our team in implementing key elements of workplace wellness. It also assures compliance with House Bill 1363, which is addressing secondary traumatic stress in the K-12 workforce. So we applied for this grant. At the beginning of the year, we were awarded $5,000, which helps pay the stipends for our team members. So we're thrilled to have received that and the support. I'll talk about that a little bit more. We have monthly wellness committee meetings. I have a multidisciplinary team of 8 individuals that represent a wide variety of employee groups, some that are housed here in the CRC, but also out in our buildings and other departments. We meet monthly to plan and implement wellness initiatives going forward. We'll have written monthly electronic staff communication. I'll have one to share with you here shortly. And this is really an opportunity for us to advertise wellness activities, resources, professional developments that we're offering, and then also community partner discounts, which I'll mention as well. We had a walk on October 14th, I'll talk to you about that, where we engaged a bunch of staff members to take a walk to Angel of the Winds for our ruler professional development training, and I know many of you attended as well. We have some great community partnerships with the YMCA and some other local gyms who have offered memberships and discounts ongoing to our employees. I'll talk a little bit about how this work is continuing to support the strategies of Dr. Brackett's ruler strategies that we talked about and learned about in October. I'll also talk with you a little bit about some employee personal safety opportunities that our staff are being offered. We launched our staff wellness website in the fall, and I'll talk to you a little bit about how that has been utilized. I just found out last week that we were just awarded an award from the Washington State Healthcare Authority. So I'm thrilled about that. So I'm happy to brag to you about that opportunity as well. I talked at the beginning there about the Kaiser Permanente Thriving Schools grant. This grant helps the district comply with House Bill 1363, which required our school district to pass policy, did that in Policy and Procedure 5515, which establishes a district-wide mental health committee, which provides training and resources and support for our staff. So this community of practice that Kaiser Permanente put together that we're participating in is designed to walk wellness teams over the course of the school year through a series of activities which ultimately will result in data-informed action plans specific to our district, specific to our employees' needs. So this grant, as I mentioned, is $5,000. That helps pay the stipends for our community members to participate in this work. This is my opportunity right now. This is the Zone 8 Award, which was from the Healthcare Authority. Is based on our Smart Health Worksite Wellness implementation. I'll talk to you a little bit about Smart Health. But we were thrilled to receive this. It recognizes the work that we've done towards employee wellness. The eligibility was based on the Smart Health Worksite Wellness Roadmap, which we submitted in January for consideration for this award. This roadmap helps our organization build and grow our wellness program with input from the Washington Healthcare Authority and other organizations. And actually there's an event at the end of March, which is the Healthy Worksite Summit, which is sponsored by the Association of Washington Cities. So I'll be attending that and receiving this award on behalf of our wellness committee. So we're really pleased to receive that as recognition of the program, the wellness program that we've been building. So some celebrations. We went for a walk on October 14th. That's kind of a blurry picture from my cell phone there, but you can see staff members walked from here at the CRC down to the Angel of Winds Arena and back. That was just an opportunity to get together, park the cars, and get a little fresh air, and had great participation. About 30 staff members participated in that, many of whom said we should do this every week. So more plans for that coming. So pleased to have such good participation there. Some of our other celebrations are our partnerships. We have community partnerships with the YMCA, Columbia Athletic Club, and then also Seattle Visiting Nurses Association. So the YMCA and the Columbia Athletic Club have offered discounts both for membership enrollment as well as monthly membership reductions, I should say, ongoing. And we continue to advertise those to our employees. And then in the fall, we partnered with the Seattle Visiting Nurses Association to offer immunizations on site, both here at the CRC and also at buildings, to provide exactly 500 immunizations. That just numbers came out that way. It wasn't planned. 62 COVID boosters and 438 flu shots were administered. Thank you, Greg, for letting me take your picture of this presentation. I appreciate that. These immunization clinics were offered both to our employees as well as their family members. So we saw lots of folks retrieving their kids from school and coming back, getting shots, and I'm pretty sure the kids were like, what's happening? So Seattle Visiting Nurses was a wonderful partner with us. We continue to want to partner with them in the future to offer these opportunities for our employees. I talked to you a little bit at the onset about a class. In fact, as we speak right now, one of these classes is just finishing at Heatherwood Middle School. This is the personal safety preparedness class. This class is being offered to our employees through by Topher Ferreira, who's our safety and security manager, as well as one of our nurses. They're going together on this. And what we heard from our employees, we did a survey last spring, and we asked our employees, hey, we're launching a wellness program, what would be meaningful for you? What would you like to see at an employee wellness program? And one of the elements that came back from that data was, we are interested in personal safety in a variety of iterations. So we have over 90 employees at this point set to take this class. It was very intentional in the way that we scheduled these classes. You'll notice that, if you can see that on there, on the fourth one there is offered in the middle of the day, 12:15 to 1:45. That was intentional so that our swing shift employees, our swing shift custodial staff could come to that training, because most of these classes are after school. Well, our swing shift staff are working during that time. They're not able maybe to get away from their workplace. So offering this class at a variety of times gives an opportunity for a larger swath of our employees to attend. We've already had one class, and the feedback that we've received is great, very appreciative of the opportunity, and to have both one of our nurses and Topher speak and train on personal safety. So I'm thrilled that have that opportunity, continue to have that opportunity with them. So challenges and opportunities. Interestingly, when I reflected on this slide in this topic, I think our challenges are really also our opportunities. The challenges to staff wellness programming are obtaining meaningful, worthwhile, and ongoing commitment from local vendors. It's maybe easy to solicit 1 or 2 donations or reductions, but to continually keep that going is a bit of a challenge. Planning and implementing wellness activities are human-intensive activities. It takes people to do this work. We are working towards distributed site-based leadership, planning, for example, wellness champions at the buildings, so that we can, as a wellness committee, create opportunities that have that promoted or cheerleaded, if you will, at the buildings by staff that are working in that building on a daily basis. But that requires intensive planning and support from our end. But that's also our opportunity. So when I speak to community organizations, I'm saying, hey, I'm going to advertise for you for free. Here's an opportunity for me to advertise your business for free to our employees in exchange for discounts, of course, for services. And then our staff enthusiasm for wellness is really high. We hear from our employees, I am interested in this. I would like to participate in these kinds of activities with my colleagues here at work. I'm interested in these programs. So my challenges are also our opportunities going forward. So how do we monitor our progress? Stakeholder engagement is important for us. I want to know that what we're doing is meaningful and is being used by our employees. So we have a wellness webpage. We have over 300 something views a month on this webpage. You can see in this chart with little spikes there. Those spikes, interestingly, occur right about the same time that my newsletter goes out. So at least that newsletter is driving some interest in the webpage. Different tiles on that website, which are kind of just put here on the bottom so you can see, but there's a segment around financial wellness, segment around mental wellness, one around staying active, and then healthy eating. So I monitor this with the cooperation of our communications department to see where directions are going, where folks are navigating towards, so we can make sure that we're keeping this content fresh and meaningful for employees. But it's a good metric for me to see if folks are actually accessing that through that information. Dr. Bowen's going to pass out our Wellness Wednesday newsletter, so you can see what that looks like. I publish a newsletter the first Wednesday of every month. So the one that Dr. Gold's passing out to you is February's, because I haven't published it yet. Tomorrow is the first day, it's Wednesday, or March's rather. But you can see through these graphs on the slide what kind of usage we're getting when folks are getting this email. The email goes out first Wednesday of the month with this newsletter attached, and we can keep track of how many folks are actually clicking on not just the newsletter itself, but the links within that newsletter. So this is an electronic copy. We're working on developing print copies that can be left in staff rooms, so when somebody's eating their lunch, they might want to flip through this. I write a lot of the content, but also my committee members, and then certainly when I hear from staff members, when they have an interest or a question, this is a great opportunity to be able to communicate that to them. So it's heavily read, over 7,600 logons to read this content, and the connecting links. So our next one will come out tomorrow, each Wednesday. For further stakeholder engagement, we have the Smart Health program. Smart Health is a voluntary wellness program that's offered through, as a benefit, through the School Employees Benefit Board. You may have heard this called SEB, right? This is the health program through the Healthcare Authority. This wellness program is at no cost to employees or the district. Every employee in Everett Public Schools is eligible to participate, even if they don't choose to have benefits through the SEB program. So what this is it's an opportunity for employees, they register, they complete a short well-being assessment, and then they're provided recommended activities designed to help them with whatever wellness goals they may have. And so you can see with the blue bars here, an increase over time in the number of eligible employees that would be able to participate in this. The red bars are those who have registered over time, and the green bars, which are smaller but growing, are those individuals who were able to complete Smart Health activities, and I'll show you in just a second how that works, but they can earn up to $125, which is taken off their next year's medical deductible. So by participating in this wellness program and participating in these activities, they actually can reduce their wellness deductible, or excuse me, their medical deductible or insurance plans for the next calendar year. So I see an area of opportunity here in promoting this opportunity, promoting this service, this program, so that our employees not only can engage in wellness activities, but they can also save $125 off their medical deductibles. So what it looks like is our employees log in to Smart Health, and of course there's lots of links on our website for that. They take a well-being assessment. It's a quick 20-something questions. They self-report on areas of their life. It's all confidential. The district doesn't see any of this content. And then the well-being assessment then gives results identifying strengths and areas for improvement for the employees. And then I just pulled out one of the titles here, what these activities might look like. So if somebody says, they're really interested in committing to writing my reflections before bedtime, and they do that, and they go in and they attest, yes, I did that, I wrote my reflections for bedtime, they'll earn 25 points. See the little gift icons up there. After the employee has earned 2,000 points over the course of the year, then they are eligible for that reduction on their health insurance deductible the next year. And there are literally hundreds of tiles here. You can certainly design, I actually designed one which helped our employees identify and navigate to our employee assistance program. So if they learned about our employee assistance program, they logged on there, they could click on their tile and they could earn 50 points towards their deductible. It's a great opportunity. Not required, but I'm looking at increasing the participation in that. So those are engaging opportunities for staff, but what else are we doing? We're implementing and designing future initiatives based on that survey that we took last spring, and certainly the feedback. We have a wellness email that I monitor for folks to give input, ask questions. We're programming, as I said, responsive to our survey. The monthly newsletters, emails, websites, in-person class offerings, those are all manners that we're engaging our employees and looking at, of course, at future in-person offerings to them as we go forward. So next steps. personal safety class going on right now. We'll have a few more of those this spring. We will continue with the Kaiser grant requirements, participating in the community of practice program that goes through this year. And then I'm researching additional grant opportunities. Kaiser is in the works of offering a much larger grant for next year, and I have every intention of applying for and getting it. That'll be coming forward, but also looking at other grant opportunities that might be available to support this program. We're looking to operationalize wellness program moving forward, and then, as I mentioned, promoting that smart health program for our employees. What questions do you have?
Directors, any questions or comments you'd like to make? Director Nichols?
I just had actually one set of questions about the Kaiser grant. I think you answered my first question was it a one-time grant? Sounds like it's not renewable.
Correct.
Okay. And let's say we don't, we're not able to get another grant to cover this. Do we have a contingency plan to continue this work without grant support?
You know, it's all in the budget conversations, right? As you know from this evening. I think when I look at operationalizing some of this, it's human intensive on the beginning side, but once some of that process gets underway, there's such enthusiasm for this work that I think our employees will continue to generate it. So that's definitely the focus going forward, should there not be funding to support it in other manners.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just chime in first, once again, love seeing this type of work, and congratulations on the grants. Those are, going for those is important, and recognizing how time intensive all of this is. So continuing that, you had said you had done a survey before, so that will be a continuing, what's worth keeping, what's worth operationalizing. So well done on that. Is there a sense of which groups of employees are sort of utilizing these more?
Because much of, particularly with the smart health, I just get numbers. I don't know if they're male, female, paraeducators. I mean, I don't get that kind of information. I do see who's sitting in the classes though. So I see, for example, in our safety class that's going on right now, I see a mix of paraeducators and teachers. I'm really hoping on that midday class that we'll have some of our maintenance employees attend that. But so far, I've seen paraeducators and teachers participating in the in-person classes. If I think back to the emails that I've received, those are really from a wide variety of staff expressing interest in, hey, have you thought about this? Or I would be interested in this. Or hey, maybe you didn't know, I actually have this certification and I'd be willing to, teach a class for free. So those types of emails are coming from a wide variety of staff, which I feel
great. Thank you.
Director Mason?
First of all, congratulations on your award. That's
Yes.
great also.
Thanks.
This is such great work, really well, I keep saying post-pandemic, there is no post-pandemic, but coming out of the worst part of the pandemic. This is, so needed, and I appreciate. In your survey, did you have an opportunity to, and I can probably get some answers, but sort of what the barriers are to participating? Just because, a lot of the participation numbers are pretty low, which is probably expected as you get rolling and started, but it'd be great to see those numbers grow quickly, tremendously.
I did, one of the questions was about what would prohibit you or what would be a barrier to your participation. So for some folks, it was, I need to leave right after school to go and get my children. Childcare issues. For some individuals, it was just kind of time of day, maybe if something was offered immediately after school, I'd be able to attend, but if it's at 5 p.m., that might not work for my family. For a very few folks, there was an issue of personal comfort, maybe participating in something, and so what that led me to look at is what kind of virtual opportunities could we provide for staff. Maybe they wouldn't be comfortable coming into a class setting or group exercise setting, but they would be able to participate virtually in something like that. But I think the biggest barrier was really what time offerings might be and just, family obligations outside of work.
I was reading through this yesterday, and I was looking at your strategic objective language, and it was promote a culture of learning and well-being for each employee group. And I felt like I saw when I was reading it a lot of wellness activities, and I was just curious, what does a culture of learning look like?
Well, like, for example, in the safety class, they're both going to be learning about personal safety.
So it's the learning around the wellness? I guess that's kind of what I was, yeah, okay, thank you.
Well, and that sort of leads to my question.
Go right ahead.
That, life's changing your lifestyle. I mean, human behavior is very hard to modify, and I can say that personally. But the $125 deductible, is that an annual reoccurring, so that if they continue to learn, continue to grow, they could earn $125 every year?
Yes.
As long as the program exists?
Yep.
That is excellent, because that's how you can, how you can grow. If you exercise and want to do it, $125, if you keep doing it, that's real money. Okay, thank you. And then the second question, for those third shift employees that you say, you're hoping that time works for them, have their managers been contacted that this was developed specifically for them to encourage them to come?
So we will be communicating with the managers, letting them know,
Okay.
coming up, but I've also been communicating with their unions, with their association. I figure any way I can get the information out there.
Okay, so but they are being targeted, because it's for them, as well as others could go.
Anybody is, of course, but anyone is welcome to come, but it was just, I wanted to be very intentional about making sure that these individuals could come, because they don't have a traditional work schedule like the rest of our.
I appreciate that. My company has had a wellness program for February, working for an international company. It happened at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
And everybody in the US said, what about us? And it was pretty much up and down these continents here. What about us? And they're like, well, if you can find somebody who wants to do it. So I appreciate, and I hope that the staff appreciates that you are trying to be open to them and their shifts and their lifestyles.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I also, Tracy, took my question about the $125 insurance benefit over time, Is there a way for us to see how many of those are being taken advantage of? So that we can then use that as how we advertise the program. I can't say this enough. Our biggest, greatest asset are our people, and taking the time to take care of them is very important. And I think people need to see that we're doing this for them, and
And
they
we don't
can
have to
benefit.
pay for it. It's not our money, that $25, $125 isn't, it's state money, so it's tax dollar money, but I appreciate that, because it is sort of, that if they can see that, and then it really is a benefit to them.
To them.
And I think the dollar, looking at that graph, it looks like it's about like 75 people or so. It would be nice to see, too, to your question, who is continuing? So is that the same 75, or is it a different 75? Because
then we advertise that this is available. The more people that are involved and engaged in it, the greater
and like
we can
changing this
stress.
annually.
For annual,
Because that's not.
Because some of that information might be some protected information, they won't tell me. I can go on, we have a dashboard through the Healthcare Authority where I can see how many individuals are engaging in the Smart Health program and how many have met that 2,000 points, so they'll get the deductible.
Right.
What I can't tell because of protected information is if it's the same 75 people every year or if it's a different 75.
That'd be a question for them. It's if they could, they don't have to share names, but can they share a proportion of sameness or differentness?
There you go.
And then, again, it would, blinded, but just because even a benefit to them.
I also see it as an opportunity, frankly, to educate some of our employees about what a deductible is. I think some
Yes.
employees don't understand what a deductible is or a copay is
Right.
and things like that. So helping our employees understand $125 is half of some of what our deductibles that are offered in the healthcare.
Yeah, for mine,
And you-
$500, that's real money.
Just saying that, $125 is half of your deductible, or whatever of your deductible for some of our employees. That is a benefit, that's real money.
It's real money.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks
Great
for the
presentation,
opportunity.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, just like to thank Dr. Saltzman, Dr. Golden for their sponsorship of these two initiatives. Thanks, Kevin and Randy, for providing those updates. With our strategic plan, we want every student in Everett Public Schools to feel inspired, to achieve, and to thrive. And I hope tonight you've heard our efforts so that all staff in Everett Public Schools are also feeling inspired and achieving and thriving. I would encourage you, if you need to, stretch or get up and support your own wellness. And as we do, we're going to invite Todd Corin to come up to provide our update to the board on instructional technology. Todd?
Good evening, President Hussein, Board of Directors, Dr. Saltzman, community members watching at home, including a 4-year-old named Nova who's watching me right now.
Isn't it time for her to bed?
Think you're gonna get her to bed? No, she can see, yeah. So my name is Todd Corin, and I'm Director for the Customer Technology Services team here for Everett Public Schools. And that's a team within the LITS department, the Learning and Information Technology Services department. My initiative is C1C, which is all about ensuring classroom technology is standardized across the district and that professional learning is provided. I'm very fortunate to have had some really dedicated educators on my team that developed this initiative, and those include Daniela Poirier, who's our Director for Digital Resources, Andrea Cartwright, who's our Director of K-12 Science Education, Cameron Taffa, who's one of our instructional technology facilitators, and Ken Toyne, who's our Director of Information and Network Services. I'm very happy to report that our initiative is on track for this year and going into next year. As I discuss our initiative, it's going to be hard to not talk about stuff, you know, the screens, the software, the hardware, but please know that this initiative at its heart is about equity and equitable access to those resources. So you'll hear a lot about me kind of echoing that. The milestones that I'll share with you are all about how we ensure that equity, and through implementation, PD, and support, make sure all students have the opportunity to access the same experiences. So I want to briefly share that this topic is incredibly personal to me. I started my educational career as a 10th grade English teacher at T.C. Williams High School outside of Alexandria, Virginia, which is the Remember the Titans High School, if you remember that film. And what I saw in my classroom was I would have one student sitting to my right who was quite literally the child of members of Congress. And to my left was a student who had grown up in public housing. It was the same public housing that their parents had grown up in and their grandparents had grown up in. So you literally had the most affluent students sitting directly next to generational poverty. And what I saw in addition to that was, I was fortunate that T.C. Williams had one of the first one-to-one computing programs on the East Coast. And I saw something so special. I saw how having the equitable access to technology made the world of difference to how students saw what their possibilities could be. On the other hand, I also saw how discrepancies in training and access to that technology could really create a deficit in the possibilities for students. So I've carried that experience with me throughout my career. I get a little passionate about it. I apologize ahead of time if I do. Feel free to tell me to calm down. But I really think that this initiative is so important and so valuable for our students. So one of the things you'll hear me talk about a lot is our feedback loop and the ways that we're engaging with our clients, our students and our staff, about what we're doing and how they're sort of experiencing the training, the technology, the implementation, and all that. I'll be talking about Twitter briefly, some of our partnerships, and you'll hear me talk a lot about our responsiveness to the data that we're getting back. So one of the first milestones I'll talk to you a little bit about is the idea of having an understanding within our departments about what equates in instructional space. And this is why this is so important. This is a map of Silver Firs Elementary that we use when we were planning our interactive panel project for the elementary schools. And so, we would reach out to maintenance facilities and say, hey, Silver Firs is up next, how many panels do we need? And they would say, well, they're including the gym, including the library, the portables, roughly 31. So we would take that number, we would add a few more, and we'd say, okay, we're good for panels. Then we would start the implementation and discover the 5 spaces that meet every day with students and teachers that are not 4 walls with a door. It could be a conference room turned into a classroom. It could be a former office turned into a classroom. And what we realized very quickly is that these spaces might not show up on an official count, but instruction is happening there every day. And we need to be sure that the technology is available and the training is available for those who are providing that instruction, regardless of what type of room they're in. The next milestone is kind of around identifying and creating a standard kit, a standard technology kit for every classroom. Luckily, we had a lot of that in place with some guidance from Dr. Saltzman and the amazing support of our community. We were able to really flesh out this kit and standardize it across classrooms. So this is one example of the elementary standard kit. You can see there's a document camera, there's our Boxlight panel with Link software, a few other items. I won't get too deep. I do want to point out the front row Juno mic, which is utilized for voice amplification for the teacher. And it might seem kind of silly to put a wireless mouse on there, but really what that is a wireless presenter tool that frees that teacher up to get into the classroom to interact with students. So it's actually incredibly valuable. So the third milestone is all about, okay, we've identified the spaces, we've identified the kit. Now, let's be sure that it's all in place. So milestone is really about doing an audit to ensure that our pieces are in place. We have inventory systems that could say a lot of things, but having a system versus being in the space and really seeing what's there can be very different. So we've been working on that audit throughout February, and we'll continue into March. Part of that audit also includes something I'll talk about more shortly, which is evaluating an interactive panel solution for our non-standard spaces, and I'll dig into that a little bit more. Our fourth milestone is really focused on that PD. Now, half of this initiative, you could argue the more important part of this initiative is the professional development for the equipment. So this milestone focused on developing, creating, whichever way you want to call it, a true instructional technology team within our learning management services department. So we brought on 2 of the existing technology facilitators in the district and aligned their work with the strategic plan, with the integrated technology plan, and sort of was able to really create a direct line of support to teachers. Fifth milestone, we've talked about where is it going to be, what is it there? Now let's make sure it's there every day. So this is all about ensuring a support infrastructure to make sure that the equipment that our community has invested in, that our teachers have invested their training and time in to use every day, is present every day. And so this is all about ensuring that our SLA agreements are always kind of as quick a turnaround time as possible. We want to make sure that students can learn and teachers can teach how they need to every single day. A panel being down, a computer being down should not derail instruction. And so we want to put in place the tiered support to be able to make that happen. And I will, since my team is a lot of the field technicians and help desk staff, I'll brag briefly, but only briefly. The last milestone is actually something that has not begun yet. It is on our plan for next year, and this is a partnership between the initiative team, LITS, and Human Resources to sort of, the partnership, it's working with HR to include classroom technology experience in the targeted recruitment process. So identify needed training for qualified candidates and have a plan for it. Ideally, we find amazing candidates who have years of teaching in a one-to-one computing environment. Maybe we find an amazing candidate who's never taught in a one-to-one environment. environment. They're gonna start in a one-to-one environment on September 1, right? So what do? How do we plan to make sure they are successful and that they are utilizing the equipment that our community has invested so much in and the teachers have invested so much time in? So that, I'm very excited for that partnership. I'm sure Dr. Golden is gonna get real tired of me really fast, but, and my excitement, but that is on the plan for next year. So some celebrations. I love these two pictures. You may have seen the first picture on the left. So this is the first morning that an interactive panel was in an elementary classroom. And what I love about it the most is the activity the teacher encouraged their students to do. The very first thing the students knew about this panel is my teachers telling me to write my name on it. My teachers telling me to touch it. That sets a tone. That this technology is not the teachers for the kids to look at, it is ours. We are learning together, interacting with this equipment. I thought that was so marvelous. And then I told every other teacher, hey, have you heard about this? It's a great way to start the day. The second picture, you might hear, I don't even know how I'll use this in my class. Well, here, I can't think of a classroom as dynamically different in a lot of ways than a weight room versus an elementary classroom, right? So in this particular image, the instructor is annotating on the panel, writing on the panel, some techniques about a specific exercise, and the students are kind of watching. But just that idea that this item that we've invested in, that our community has invested in, has created these types of experiences in such dramatically different learning environments, that's really exciting to me. So the next two celebrations, I want to share some Twitter facts. So we've been promoting, we've been advertising, we've been collecting feedback back as well through Twitter. So there's two tweets that sort of represent two different milestones. The one on the left is some of the field techs over winter break who are working on a Chromebook swap. We, as part of lifecycle management, making sure that the technology is there and ready to go, they pulled our oldest Chromebooks out and brought our brand new ones in. That statement sounds very small. Take the old, bring the new. What that really means is the logistics around moving thousands of pounds of equipment manually to and from buildings, rewiring hundreds of carts by hand, and getting them ready to go for the next time the students walk into that building. That logistics, the reality of that sometimes gets lost. So I love sharing that because that all builds into what we're doing within this initiative and being strategic. It's not just about, I guess it's time to update our stuff because it's old. No, it's about ensuring the equity to the experiences, and the best equipment will help provide those experiences. I also want to point out we had our engagement. We keep track of our contacts, and we have 768 folks engaged with that particular tweet. The second one shows our PD team on one of our morning drop-in sessions. So whenever the interactive panels had a planned update, the PD team would actually schedule and plan out to have both their folks, members of my team, to be there every morning, dropping into teachers' classrooms, make sure they knew what the update was, what it might offer them, and then also letting them know about further trainings coming up. So every time we had one of these updates, we've had people in the classroom, every classroom, at every school over the course of a couple of months. So really ensuring that no one is left adrift. We are making contact, ensuring that these are being utilized the way we hope they will. Further celebrations, again celebrating the PD team. This is all about some of the numbers around some of the professional development sessions that were held specifically for certificated staff. There are 4 planned sessions as well as the drop-ins. The numbers, really what that's saying is all staff. We're talking about all elementary staff, all secondary staff have at least been through 1 and 2. Elementary, because they got their panels earlier, have been through number 3. High school, secondary, and middle school is coming soon. The drop-ins are happening throughout. They'll just be there at the school for a day and let teachers know in case they want to drop in. So that team is really working on identifying any way that teachers need them to be there, We've also been developing partnerships with our curriculum teams to bring embedded curriculum into trainings, making it job embedded. We know that equity isn't just about certificated staff, so we've also had 18 trainings so far this year for substitutes and other classified staff. I overheard one sub say, "I can't tell you how grateful I am for this training. I feel so prepared for being able to teach." I remember one morning I went in for a morning drop-in, and the teacher that I was there to support was actually a sub who had just been trained. And she was like, "I'm good, don't worry about it." I love that. I love that preparation, ready to go. We have also been training entire departments here at the Community Resource Center, maintenance, math, and science, with more coming on the use of the panels and other resources. And one more final celebration. I talk a lot about responsiveness throughout this presentation, but the PD team, knowing that responsiveness doesn't just mean let's schedule at different times. It also means what are we doing to get the resources and documentation to teachers in any way they need. So they've fleshed out 2 different portals in Canvas. A hardware portal and a digital tools portal more focused on the software. And within these 2 portals, they are creating training modules, videos, documentation, step-by-step how-tos, whatever teachers need to be able to use this equipment the way it's supposed to be. They're listening, they're responding, they're making it available. So some of the challenges, and there's some really interesting challenges and opportunities of this work. The first is something I mentioned before. We have a standard kit, but we have non-standard spaces. So that kit normally is standardized across grade level and curriculum. There are some variations here and there, but not much. But when you're talking about a non-standard space that we identified, we're talking about 5 smaller standard spaces. If you've seen the interactive panels at the schools, that's a 75-inch panel on a cart. That can't just go anywhere within a school. So one thing that we're doing right now is evaluating and identifying a smaller panel that will provide the exact same equitable experience for our students, because that's really important. We don't just want to put a TV on the wall. We want it to be interactive. We want to make sure that a student in this instructional space can have the same equitable experience as a student in a traditional classroom. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I thought you were going to ask me. No. And the PD team, their responsiveness is a really interesting challenge because they are constantly taking in both quantitative and qualitative feedback. They're doing surveys, but they're also listening in their trainings. They're also getting emails from teachers. They're out in classrooms and hearing things. And so they are constantly evolving. They're constantly responding to that information and doing everything they can to meet the needs of teachers. And they're bringing that information back into conversations about the hardware and the software. Are we using this software or that? Teachers are leaning more towards this. We're bringing all that information back in. The way some of the ways that we kind of make sure that we're meeting our milestone timelines, we look at our implementation and our trainings and our data kind of around that. We've got some data there. We're watching for SAMR within classrooms, and we're going to talk about SAMR a little bit more, and I'm going to ask you all to talk to me, because I feel like I'm talking at you a lot, so I'm going to ask you to talk to me in a moment. We take a look at our professional learning attendance, both virtual and in person. And also we're evaluating our help desk ticket system and looking at our tickets for trends, and then really digging into that. And I'll show you a graph there. We want to see when and we want to see what. So we've got some really good actionable data from that. So I want to talk a little bit more about SAMR. So some of you may be very familiar with SAMR, some of you may be brand new to you. So SAMR, it's a framework and a common language around how to discuss and improve technology use in the classroom. It is essentially saying, you are using this technology, what is it really doing? And the 4 levels are substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. It is not a ladder, it's more like a pool with a shallow end and a deep end. You can't stay in the deep end forever. Sometimes you gotta take a break in the shallow end. So it's kind of a continuum. And the coffee metaphor, it's one of my favorites. So if you imagine substitution being, instead of making my coffee at home, I picked it up in a drive-thru. It's still just coffee. I just got it somewhere else. A teacher, instead of using a projector, is using an interactive flat panel. They're just showing their screen. No change. Substitution. Augmentation, after you picked up your coffee, you put some milk and sugar in there. So now this teacher, because they're using the interactive panel, can wirelessly send their image to the screen rather than have to be right next to the projector with a cable. Same idea, but functionally there's some improvement. Modification is where things start to look pretty significantly different, and you can also sort of imagine a line between augmentation and modification, because it goes from what the teacher is doing to what the students are doing. So in modification, the technology that's present starts to really redefine the task. So now, instead of what was happening before where the teacher's just lecturing, maybe the students are up at the screen, they're annotating over some work, they're annotating over some ideas, then they're saving that work immediately to the cloud to be able to post it with their other project group members. So all that being able to happen right there at the panel. It's not the craziest thing from what would have happened before, but it's definitely improved. When you get into redefinition, oh, I'm sorry, that's, now we're talking about like a caramel macchiato. It's starting to look pretty different. Redefinition, now we're talking about the official pumpkin spice latte, which you may not know this, but you can only get the official one from certain green branded coffee shops in the greater Seattle area. That idea is the technology literally creates the possibility for a task to be done that could not have been done without it, right? So now you're talking about video chats with the classroom across the globe. You're talking about these possible things that just couldn't have happened before. Really exciting, but often they take a lot to make happen, so can't do every single thing you do in the classroom, can't be that redefining thing. Sometimes you just need to show your screen and talk through some notes, right? So that kind of back and forth. So I was hoping to take a minute and just ask you all, as you've done your walkthroughs, as you've done your IRs, you've been in schools, been in classrooms, either with not just about the panels, because this initiative is not the panel initiative, this is about equity and experience. So I'm just wondering, have you seen some of these ideas? Have you seen activities in the rooms where you're like, oh, now that I see that, that does feel a lot like augmentation, or maybe you saw a teacher that was doing something truly redefining.
Can I ask,
Please.
so with those new speakers, when I was in Emerson again, I've seen them in other schools where I can hear it in the back of the room, but one thing that was pointed out to me was that this, I don't know if it's every school, had a front of the room mic for the kid to have.
Yes.
So that when they were doing the morning calendar, it didn't have to be everybody sitting around, especially with again, the pandemic and other things. The kids could sit at their desk and that little voice could talk into that, and we could hear it all the way in the back of the room, which to me, I don't know if that's redefinition or modification, because it wasn't substitution. That classroom has changed. That little voice can now be projected bigger.
Yeah.
Where does that fit?
You know what? One nice thing
Or does
about
not
SAMR.
everything fit?
One nice thing about SAMR is you could have two people arguing back and forth, and neither one is necessarily wrong. You know, often I think that's a perfect example, because it seems like something so small. But what that's done is now engaged that child who's speaking, and also ensured everyone else in the room is also now just as engaged. You could probably argue that, you know, maybe it's augmentation into modification. Redefinition, there are probably other ways that students could have been heard, so I don't know that I'd go that far. But really, where is less as important as being able to recognize what is happening in the room?
Yeah, it's pointed out that that was really cool.
Sure.
I like your coffee analogy. My question is, because I can see in certain classrooms, you did get redefinition, you did get modification. My question is, what percentage and how are we teaching teachers through PD? What percentage of our teachers have moved from substitution to augmentation to redefinition?
Absolutely.
And then what percentage do you feel, based on the PD that we've given, we've seen that?
You know, what's really interesting is where we are in the timeline of this project. I think for a lot, especially if you think about the high school teachers, it's February, some of them just got their panels in October. So a lot of them often are feeling like, please, nothing new. I need to make sure I really know how to use this. The basics on it are very easy. Some of the advanced stuff, it's all about, you know, you just practice, being comfortable with it. What I will tell you is we have some teachers who are chomping at the bit to get to one really redefining thing, which is step 2, not just of having the teacher sharing their screen, but the students in the room sharing their screens to the panel and being able to discuss and interact with the entire class with what they're working on their device. I unfortunately don't have a good percentage. I think we are going to get there, and I think as we, again, continue to work on this strategic initiative and raise the importance of the effective use of instructional technology. It's not just about buying a lot of stuff. It's about using it well, right?
Exactly.
As we continue that and grow that, I think we will be able to get to a point where we have a little bit more quantitative rather than just qualitative.
It was one of the questions we were asked some time ago, and I think it was before we even got flat screen, when we were going one-to-one, where we asked the question of your department, how many teachers do you feel, or what percentage of the teachers do you feel in the district are utilizing their one-to-one computers in a different way than just to sit and get with their students? You know, whether students sit and you tell them what to do, but they're using it in a different way. So what percentage of your teachers have grasped the fact that they have technology and they're at a different level? I.e., some teachers wouldn't turn on the computer. Some will now turn it on and use something, and then now another knows how to manipulate that into getting more information to the student.
Sure. I have seen a marked change since we went remote. A comfort level kind of showed up with a lot of things. Silver linings, I guess, that's a little bit of a reach, but I've seen comfort level. We initially saw I don't want to touch a computer, all I've done is for 2 years, but honestly, I think we've gotten past that. I can't tell you how many times I happen to sit right next to the help desk. I hear calls about, I need this tech now, I need this now, I can't teach without it. I think we're getting there. We're making progress. And I would love, next time I speak with you all, if there's a next time, to have some more hardware data for you.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? Yeah, the substitution is okay, because I did hear a couple teachers say they'll never use the whiteboards again.
Sure.
So, I mean, that is pure substitution, which is okay. And so it is sort of like you said, people could go back and forth and tasks could go back and forth. So this isn't everything needs to be.
Not at all. That's why one of the examples I've seen of this is literally coffee floating in a pool. I realize that sounds absurd, but they both kind of work. You're never going to stay in the deep end forever. It kind of goes back, and sometimes a very quick, easy activity doesn't need to be the most tech-heavy thing in the world. What we want to see is that the investment that our community has made and the experiences that we know this tech can provide are there. So I want to get through just a few more slides. Thank you for sharing. Those were perfect. One more element of progress monitoring. Like I said, we look at our tickets and we check when and what. We want to see trends. We want to see actionable data from our tickets. So this is a timeline of the year and the tickets that have come in. A couple of things I want to point out. You can see the start of the year when you hit that really big bump, but then we have another one back in June when folks are coming back. But this is consistent engagement. People putting in tickets about things, needing support with things, to me this doesn't show that things are breaking a lot, this shows that people are using them. And that's really exciting. And I would be at a loss if I did not share that total number. The LITS department as a whole has been able to respond to over 23,000 requests for support of varying things within the year. I checked those numbers 5 times because I didn't believe it. So our next steps, we are going to continue with our technology audit that we began to make sure that standard kit the pieces are in place. We're going to continue being responsive with our PD and our team. We're going to work with departments in our messaging and our modeling of the use of the instructional technology, again, because of the possibilities. And then I'm very excited to start that HR partnership that I mentioned, which we'll start planning on next year. And with that, I'll open up to any questions you might have.
Director Nichols?
How much work have you done in this with folks like Kelly Clevenger that heads up our special education department as far as kind of making sure that we have technology that's accessible?
Absolutely. We actually, over the last 2 years, we've implemented a staff member on my team whose top priority is being responsive specifically to special services students. And I've been really happy. That 10th grade English teacher also taught and co-taught classes for all 6 years that he was at that school. And that's a really valuable thing to me as well. That's a partnership that's continuing. We're also expanding and doing some really exciting things with the adaptive tech department. You may have heard about or seen the adaptive toy drive kind of floating around where they are they did a toy drive in the winter, which was about collecting toys and equipment that then they will have students actually adapt using switches that students with mobility needs and challenges utilize to be able to learn. They're playing with the toy, but they're learning how to use the switches, which they'll be using to enhance their school experience and learning experience in their lives. So not as much as I would want to, but we've done a lot of really good work.
And that's really, I mean, like the standard kit, like a Bluetooth microphone isn't, you know, cutting edge technology, right? But it's a simple solution to a problem that may or may not exist in a classroom where you have somebody who has hearing or seeing or vision difficulties. You know, all those types of things are really, there's lots of really neat solutions that aren't necessarily tech heavy, but things that we can kind of incorporate into classrooms as a standard. So, thank you very much for that.
Fantastic. Director Mason, please.
Well, first I want to say, and I'm probably not alone in this room in this, but you never have to apologize for being passionate and having enthusiasm for providing equitable learning opportunities for students, especially in this room. So, and really, I don't even have a question. I just want to say I am so impressed with the work that you've done on this.
Yes.
Brian Beckley and his team. I mean, when I hear about the numbers and the timeframes that you have implemented this technology and gotten our staff and teachers up to speed on how to use it, I'm just totally blown away. Your thoroughness has been just unbelievable. So congratulations on this. Reading through this presentation was really great because it provided a lot of detail that was kind of missing in my big picture.
Sure.
And I really appreciate that as well. Thank you.
And if I can, truly, every single member of the department was involved in these projects.
Oh, I imagine.
Every single one. It's a true collaboration.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, and I would like to recommend to Kathy that we get some of this really promoting. I mean, we are upwards probably in the over $100 million investment in all of this technology through our levies, the capital levies we have done for the past 6+ years. And to have a presentation like this to really demonstrate, I mean, you're really talking the smart boards, but that basic tech, the changeover of one-to-one, that life cycle, I mean, those are important messages for the community to hear of what their investment is providing and having equity throughout and really thinking about those non-classroom spaces. If there's any way this can be edited down to really show the community really where their money is going. I mean, we've had great presentations, but this is, I think, the most tangible one we've had tonight. Great work tonight by everybody, but this is what people like to pay for, and I think if they could see what they've paid for, you know, your Twitter thing, but if there is just some way that we could really, this is a beautiful presentation, and your daughter's name is Nova. I mean,
yes. There's a son named Sammy there too, but he better be asleep.
I'd like to also add, I'd like to ditto what Director Mason and Mitchell just said, and Director Nichols. This is impressive work in such a short time. This is very impressive, and I would like to thank you, Todd, and thank you, Brian, for the work that your group has done, because it's going to pay a lot of dividends forward. Sure. We were one of the first districts in our area that came on one-to-one, and we were able to respond quickly because of the pandemic. And we have not stopped. We have gotten flat screens. It's a different focus on education and engaging the students in a different way. And it's so student-centered. It's amazing. And it increases the staff's educational background with technology. It is impressive. Thank you. And whatever we can do to provide our community with what we've done, because they approved the levy. If it were not for them, the levy would not have been approved.
Absolutely.
We would not have been able to be ahead of the game. And so thank you so very much. I'm still concerned how many teachers still don't know where the on and off switch is. You know, we have to make sure that we can ensure that they are also increasing in their knowledge on technology. Because I can tell you, I learn every day. different things. And, you know, luckily I still don't have to have my kids show me how to use the DVR. I can do it myself.
Well,
Thank you so much.
thank you. I do just want to say, you know, we did achieve a lot in an extraordinary amount of time, but we were given the bold goal from Dr. Saltzman. He gave us the goal, and we worked our hardest to meet it, so thank you.
Well, you still have a lot more to do, so I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Yes?
Just to comment, the IRs in the fall, we did get to see some of this in action, and it was fantastic. Even the audio amplifier, it made such a difference in some of the classrooms. And exactly for the reasons that you all mentioned, and so fantastic to see. To your point, and I can't remember, I feel like this has come up in a different meeting, are there at each school, because I'm imagining a staff member who, limited time, is there a tech person identified at each, like a safe person that they can ask those very simple, like Jared's mine, you know, those very basic questions
Sure.
on.
I have one of those.
We have a field technician assigned to every high school. We have the other field technicians, because of the way we're staffed, the other field technicians kind of share the middle and elementaries. The middle schools all have a Chromebook support, kind of office support person there on site. They're a little more focused on the logistics of our one-to-one program. But with the PD that we're working on, that the PD team is working on, one thing I know that they're trying to do is focus on build capacity within the schools. Because teachers don't want to ask me, they want to ask their friend, hey, how do you do that cool thing you did? So we're trying to build that capacity.
Yeah, you get that super user, and you get that where a teacher can just text, everybody calls teachers or staff person so-and-so, but they love those texts.
Exactly.
Because I have that friend that works.
Sure.
I think it's important for the public and the board to know too, that when you rolled this out, there was PD right away, right? We just didn't roll it out, they sat there. And that's a culture where everybody's familiar with it. We're gonna talk about, are they turning it on or what's the stats? You walk through schools, the kids are using it. The teachers like it. So I just wanna say to you and your team, outstanding work. To all the people tonight that presented outstanding work. Just a championship performance tonight. And it'll be also tomorrow when the Seagulls play on Wednesday. So I just wanna say that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Todd.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks to our presenters. I want to also thank Dr. Saltzman and Dr. Scott for sponsoring that last initiative. That concludes our update tonight. We look forward to our next board study session on March 21st. You will hear 3 updates that are related around multi-tiered systems of support, often referred to as MTSS. 2 of those initiatives are focused on social emotional learning, and the 3rd is focused explicitly on academics. So we look forward to that. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meister. Very good presentation this evening. I really appreciated it. I think all the directors here appreciated it as well. Thank you so much. Any final comments, any final concerns? With that, this concludes the business schedule to come before the meeting is now adjourned.